Um, Welcome to my rather chaotic office. Please ignore the clutter. Every so often you'll see me glance up. I made some notes because I don't really do this kind of thing very often. And I wanted to make an intro to this video so that people know why I'm doing it. The whole stay-at-home order has made life a little difficult. It's changed things for many people. For me, in particular, it means I don't get to train regularly. I think this is the longest I haven't been at a dojo since I started training. So, and so, a little background, I've been training Aikido for a little while. The reason I have trained it and stayed with it is mostly because of the paired work. I find that interesting. I don't actually find things like kata and saburi, set forms, things like that, all that interesting for very long. And since almost everything in Aikido, at least in the style I practice, tends to be paired work, there's always a new challenge, there's always something new to figure out with the person. And now I don't get to do that. So a lot of dojos are running into that problem, and they've started releasing videos of solo work people can do. A lot of that solo work tends to be form-based in kata and very specific footwork, handwork, things like that, which, as I said, it just doesn't hold my interest. It works for a lot of people, and a lot of people can use that to get better. It just doesn't work for me. So I'm trying to come up with a set of videos or exercises that people can do that allow them more free movement in what they do, and it's more to explore a idea or concept that you can then use in your martial arts going forward. So it's more general and less specific. And I mean, if that's of interest, great. And hopefully this video will be of interest to you. If it's not, there are lots of videos out there, lots of people who are showing amazing forms and weapons work that is very specific, that you can use to help build up a lot of accuracy and whatever concept they're working on. Alright, that was the intro. Now for the setup. So for this exercise, you're going to need a heavy bag, but not a heavy bag, a bag that is heavy. And we're going to try and work on moving weight, and once weight is in motion, how do you continue to move it, and things like that. So you can use, we had one person use a sleeping bag that they put Ziplocs of change in to make it a little heavier. Other people are using duffel bags. I used a feed bag that I had to refill with grass pellets for horse feed and re-sew together. Basically any bag closer to hip height, the better. And I would say anywhere between 10 to 50 pounds. Know your limits. So if you've never done this kind of thing before, use a much lighter bag. If, say, you've been studying judo for most of your life and you're used to using like 100 to 200 pound person-sized bags to exercise with, you can probably go heavier. I did 50 pounds, a bit sore today, but know your limits. If you need to stretch and warm up before this, please do so. I'm going to take video I shot of a online class where I was working through this with other people, edit it, and just give you the exercises. Do each exercise. I would recommend doing them at least 5 minutes, but basically do them until they're no longer of interest and you're not learning things, you're not figuring things out. At that point, you should just move on. Like if you understand what's happening, you understand what's happening. No reason to dwell on it. Uh, yeah, oh, also make sure to keep your injuries in mind. If you have a bad back, bad shoulder, bad knees, modify all the movements. And don't worry about mimicking my movements. It's more about understanding. In this case, it's going to be understanding how weight feels when you place it at odd angles and when you move it. All right, let's get to it. Hold the weight at odd angles. All right, I'm going to do a voiceover for all of this because it was recorded when I was on a video call with other people and they're asking questions, which is why the editing and everything. So it'll be a lot clearer if I just give a voiceover. At this point, what we want to do is we want to take the weight that we have, the weighted bag, and hold it at strange angles and strange positions. Try and get the weight down to our feet and see how it feels, basically. How does it feel to have this extra weight in these weird positions? If you can be more creative with your positions than I am, that would be great. But this is what I did. And I'm trying to get as much range as I can with that weight. Do keep in mind all of your injuries that you have and how much the item that you have weighs and everything like that. It would really be bad to throw out your back. Next, we're going to try the same thing, but we're going to try and take one of our legs out of the equation and see if we can still stay balanced. And how does that change how it feels weight-wise? You should be able to get even more extreme positions this way, since you can use your other leg as counterweight. Now we're going to start taking the weight that we have and lowering it to the ground. And what you want to do is feel the weight fall, and how does that affect your body? What does it feel like? And things like that. And ideally, if you can do it as a slightly controlled fall, that'll be better because you'll start to feel what muscles you need to use to control the weight itself. You want to make as much contact as it's going down as possible. Try loading it in different areas, different positions, and then letting it slide down the body and feel it as it slides. Try not to hit yourself in the head. Make sure your head's not tense. Then we started picking up the speed a bit, but I was basically talking about how you want to feel as much contact with the weight as possible at this point. Later we're going to do it in motion more, faster motion, and you won't really want to feel that much weight on you. Right now you want to feel what it's like to have that. Can you get the weight to go to your feet and stay pretty much on your feet as it slides down the whole time? If I had an 80s montage sound track, I'd be playing that during this. but I don't. Sorry, guys. So now we're going to start to use our legs in various ways, either as an obstacle to get around or as a means of starting the motion. Then you try and basically you're trying to get your legs into it in any way that you can right now. And it's just trying different things. Can you kick the bag up? Can you have it slide over your leg? Can you just tilt it around? The taller the bag you have, the easier this is going to be. But since we're all at home, we make do with what we got. And yeah, since I don't do these very well, ever, this is like going to be a lot of dead air time. Sorry about that. If you guys have suggestions, let me know. Other than an 80s soundtrack that I'd have to buy, which would be fun, but so here, as a title card that's coming up is going to tell you, I'm starting to go over the shoulder. Start the motion with the leg up and over the shoulder. There you go. Try to go over the shoulder. Look at that. Foreshadowing, but not really. A little too obvious. And I'm also showing how I'm starting it off, how he can use the knee to kick the weight up and go over. So then, after you've gotten used to using your legs, try and take them out of it. Not saying it's a good idea, but it changes the muscles you have to use, and try and figure out what muscles changed, right? How does it feel different? How is the weight different? The initial start is much harder for me with this, which kind of makes sense. But once it starts moving, it tends to be pretty close to the same. At least that's what I was finding. I think somewhere around here I'm either making fun of how out of shape we all are, or I think we were also joking about the change in my friend's sleeping bag and how it almost could buy a cup of coffee. So this I'm trying to go up and over because somebody commented, yeah, they notice that they're using a lot of hip, which is good. But what happens if you take your hip out of it? How do things change? Does it make it easier, harder? And for the hip, I mean the twisting to start the moving of the bag and everything, which I'm still doing. It's difficult to take out for me. So now we're going to try and get the bag in motion and load it, which means just put the weight on you, have that sink to your feet. See how that feels? What muscles change in order to do that versus just keeping it in motion? I stumble a little, goes. I don't do this exercise. And during this, I started to notice what we're going to be looking at next, which is what do you do once you have the weight loaded, right? And here we are. Try different ways of getting out from under the weight. So what I noticed were two easy ways to do it, right? I could load the weight and then move everything back. So I drop just a little bit and move my whole body back and it falls. I found that one is hard to control, but I could also load it and then turn my shoulder over and have it just fall to the front, which was much easier for me to control. There are probably a million other ways to do this. Try however many you can think of. So now we're going to actually try and load the bag onto our hip instead of the shoulder. And this is when you notice that the bag slides off if I try and keep it in motion. So I changed it a little bit so that I basically throw the bag up and let it fall onto my hip, which dropped all my weight, which made it a lot easier for me to load it onto the hip instead of just having it slide off my leg, because it gave me time to get my hip in position pretty much. And I mean, find the way that works for you to do that. It might not be the same. That was just what I found, is that if I had it pop up a little bit higher and just drop, it worked a lot easier. And then I didn't actually feel the weight as much until it sunk into my knees. Well, into my feet, really. Knees bounce, and yeah. And then, you pick up the speed, play around with it, try to figure out what other muscles are working and why are they working and things like that. So now we're going to go back to the first exercise and see if the way we use our muscles has changed at all. So basically stand in odd positions and see what's sore in your body now, what's not. If you've been doing this for these exercises for like a half hour or so, your body's going to be sore. So this is a time to check in and really try and figure out what's happening. So now that you know what muscles are sore, try adjusting. If your back is sore, which mine was a little bit, can I fire the abs? The abs to do more work and basically relax the back muscles. And do I have to change anything else in my body in order to do that? So then somebody else during this noticed that if he did larger movement, it was easier for him. Basically because the weight never actually falls on you that much once you get it moving. It's just slight manipulations as to where you want it to go. So he tried this larger motion to see how it felt. And after the initial start, things became easier. Even in weird positions and things like that. And during all of that, somebody else noticed that they were keeping the weight over their center a lot, which isn't a bad thing. But maybe we should try something else. actually, that's the next part. So this part is just keeping it in motion, which we've talked about, and we noticed how much easier it is when it's in motion. But you'll notice it still stays fairly over my core most of the time. So what happens if that's not a possibility, or really just it's different, so why not try it? So put the weight far away from you and see if you can still get it going. And as long as you can get it in motion, it seems to work okay for me. And there I'm mentioning that the leg muscles, what if they press down and turn back, and then once it's in motion, the shoulder flips it over. And try different ways. Do note that you're also at these off angles when you're starting, so it's going to pull your muscles more. So be careful. And I'm mostly just talking about that once it's in motion, it seems to be a lot easier. And again, describing how the pull starts at the beginning. And then the shoulder for the finer control once it's in motion. All right. Hope some of that was interesting. Let me know.